Woohoo! The last section of topic 9. In this one we get to talk about flowers. One of my favorite things. I love flowers. So the flowering process and the reproduction that is created in that event have a lot of biotic and abiotic factors. Now, you all know about pollinators, insect pollinators, and tell me which one we normally think about when we think about insect pollinators. It is the bee. So insect pollinators, we think of bees, but anything, any kind of fly, even ants, even ants, right? Any kind of insect flying in there will work. And not just insects, right? There's birds that will go in and out of flowers. And the main key, remember, every flower has both male and female parts. And it doesn't want to self-fertilize. It wants to take its male gametes and move them, its pollen, to another flower, to another individual of the same species. That way you get sexual reproduction, which is more beneficial to the plant than cloning or asexual reproduction. So let's talk about, those are the biotic factors mainly that we're talking about. But the abiotic are also important. For example, wind. A lot of plants will use wind to help them pollinate, move the pollen around. You know, when it's windy outside, those of you with allergies probably get more sneezy, more stuffed up. And that's from that pollen being whipped around. And that pollen can definitely fertilize other flowers. You also have water. Water can also move pollen, but most importantly for a lot of ecosystems, it moves the seeds around. The seeds fall into the water and then go all over the place. My favorite example of that is the coconut, right? Coconut gets washed in the ocean, can go thousands of miles away, and then start growing there. So as a part of water, you know, think of rain as well. Okay, the rain sprinkling down, moving. So these are abiotic things in the environment that also, you know, have a big impact on reproduction and the flowering of plants. Now, take a look at this fact. There was this university study in Göttingen, with the two little dots over there. Göttingen study. And that happens to be in Germany, although you might be able to tell that from the name. It surveyed 200 countries. So it took a big swath out of, you know, potential. Remember, we talk about studies, we want to have them global, as many data points as possible. Out of 115 global crops, so we're talking not just, say, wheat, rice, soybeans, corn, but we're talking 115, we're talking way more beyond that. 87% relied on insect pollinators. So that tells you we have to protect insects. Normally we think of insects as pests, and they are. I do not want you to ever, you know, want bed bugs, cockroaches, or any other kind of insect in your house, ants. However, for the global ecosystem, it is important to have insects. This is a great example of that. Our food supply would collapse without insects. So we got to be careful, excuse me, with the pesticides we use, okay, with the strategies we use to kill insects. Because if we kill insects, we greatly diminish the ability of crops to fertilize themselves, and we, in a sense, kill ourselves. So just like that general idea, like, just, you never know what different roles different animals, plants play in an ecosystem. It's always our best policy, you know, to protect the world around us. One thing's really cool about flowering, it's a change in the gene expression. Now, this is a good time to kind of go over what a gene is. Remember, a gene is on the DNA, which is in your nucleus, and whatever, it has all the instructions for everything. It only uses some of them, you know, when it needs a certain thing to happen, like flowers. So the DNA will create a code of RNA, which will then go out and create the amino acid or protein product. Amino acid protein product out there on a ribosome in the cytoplasm. All right, so now when the plant needs flowers, it's going to start making those genes that make flowers. So let's check it out. First thing, remember, the first thing is germination. You know, basically, you know, getting that seed wet and having it in the right temperature condition for it to start growing. So it starts to sprout, and that's what you all did, or many of you did in your experiment. Then you had the vegetative period. Basically, it's growing. Okay, it's between these germination and flowering stages. Then you have the reproductive stage. Where the shoot apical meristem right at the very top. Remember, you have the shoot apical meristem, and then you have the root apical meristem. Those are the main two growth patterns. And then you have the lateral meristems moving out. Instead of making leaves, it makes a flower. Right there at that apical meristem. And that allows for sexual reproduction, which you're combining genes, right? That's all sex means, sex reproduction. You're combining genes from two individuals. You're mixing them up. Remember, if you don't do that, you're cloning. You can read that, individuals. And increasing variety, and that is really important for evolution. And we'll get to that in a second. The next couple things before we wrap that up. So, a change. There we go. There we go. A little bit better on there. Like I mentioned before, when you have the flowers, you're changing your patterns of gene expression. Oh, a gene that wasn't working before, you're going to start turning it on. And that's going to produce those different parts, the flower, the petal, the filament, the anther, the style, ovary. Making these flowers instead of leaves. And that is a trade-off, right? Because the plant definitely needs energy. It's going to lose some energy momentarily, you know, while that flower is going. But, you know, the plant obviously has enough. And that allows for, as we mentioned, sexual reproduction. And what it is, remember we got the combination. Two individuals. And it's beneficial. It makes you more resistant to disease. It allows you to adapt faster. So if the conditions change, you have those varieties. In general, adapt faster because there's more variation. Alright, so extremely beneficial. Pretty much all species who have the power to reproduce sexually do it because it works. Now, there are, you may not have been aware, but there's some flowers called short day and some flowers called long day. And it all depends on the transfer of this molecule, phytochrome red to phytochrome far red. So we just call it initial PR, and then PFR. And in our long day plants, they need a lot of this PFR. You see how when you're in daylight, you create a lot of PFR. These long day plants sense that PFR, there's lots of PFR there. Then they start, hey, let's make some flowers. Short day plants need low levels of PFR. So all that PFR really kind of turns them on. They don't like PFR. Long day plants, they're waiting. When they get enough PFR, they're good to go. Short day plants, the PFR turns them off. They're like, we're not going to do that. And it's not until you have low levels of PFR that they start to flower. And you'll see at nighttime that PFR disappears. So the longer the night equals less PFR, the short days come on board. So the short day flowers bloom. I can't, this behind my, that's flowers, right? Bloom. Sorry, that's kind of messed up. And the long day plants like that PFR, and then they start to bloom once they get enough of it. They look for that critical level. It's like a turn on for them. They want that PFR. All right. So here another explanation. Long day plants, the nights are short. So you have less PFR converted, so you have high PFR levels, and that binds to a protein, and that's basically acts as a transcription factor. Transcription factor switching on the genes for flowering. So it's promoter. So the high PFR promotes flowering. If we go to the other side, nights are long with our short day plants, a short day, long nights. So more PFR is converted. So when these PFR levels get low enough, it'll start to bloom. So in this case, PFR acts as an inhibitor. So the plant needs low levels of that. So it's acting in two different ways in two different plants. The same molecule in one, in long day, promotes the flowering, but in short day plants, it inhibits the flowering. So you don't want much of it. All right. And if this seems confusing, I think it is. This is one thing that really confuses me, and I always have to review before I teach this. This is a famous kind of a well-known way to explain it a little bit. Short day plants, they flower when that darkness, uninterrupted darkness, exceeds a critical night length. So here exceeds, and you'll see you need this amount of darkness to then flower. But you can see, if you kind of trick the plant by giving it a burst of light in the middle of the night, it won't flower, right? No flowers. Oops. So you're kind of tricking the plant. So scientists have done this, poor plants, tricking them, messing with their plant sleep. So if you think about it, plants again are a lot like us, but better in a lot of ways. They need their sleep too, and important things go on during their sleep. This is explainable. Remember, for humans, exactly why we need sleep and why we can die without sleep is not all that well understood. So in our long day plants, I can't, my new setting, I can't right behind my video here, but when a period of darkness is less than a critical night length, then it'll flower. So you'll see this level of darkness, if it's that much darkness, it's not going to flower. But see, when it kind of it bumps beyond that, you have this much, that critical amount of sunlight, then it starts to bloom. And again, it can be tricked again. So it's not quite enough, right? But boom, if you trick it, if you give it that burst of light for a certain amount of time in the evening, you can trick that plant to flowering. And this is how like commercial, not florists, but flower growing operations work. To get the flowering right, they will manipulate this day length to do that. So next time you can talk about your knowledge of short day and long day plants and really amaze some people, and you'll amaze yourself.